Okay, so welcome to the first lesson in the sociology of education. Today we're going to have a look at the reasons why we have schools in the first place. So we're looking mostly at the functionalist view that schools perform a function. We're going to discuss as well how successful schools have been in performing these functions. But first up, we need to discuss the official definition of what education is. Education is defined as the process of gaining knowledge and understanding which goes on for all of our lives through formal and informal education. Formal education is the learning you do in set subjects, in classrooms, in organised educational institutions. So if you look at your timetable and you see maths, English, sociology, science, those are the formal education subjects that you are learning at school. But if you think about it, you learn a whole lot more at school. You learn how to walk and behave in corridors, how to speak to teachers, and how to generally behave in a way that is acceptable. All of this education comes under informal education. And this is what you learn by observing what goes on around you and the various life experiences that you have while you're at school. Informal education includes both written and unwritten rules. Now, according to the functionalists, there are 5 main functions of education. And as we go through them, I would highly recommend that you create a mind map or a poster that looks something like this. Feel free to use lots of colour, highlighters, and even some pictures if that's how you learn. The first main function of education is social control. Schools act as agents of social control by teaching us how to accept rules and authority. So when you learn how to obey your teacher, show them respect and do as you're told, it is an important lesson for you to learn to get you ready for the workplace. Because one day when you go to work, you will need to obey the authority of your boss. Functionalists argue that by learning this, you will work as a much more effective part of society, and therefore society will function much better as a whole. Secondly, schools serves the needs of the economy. Because we learn skills and knowledge at school, these skills are going to get you ready for the workplace. And functionalists believe that the more skills you pick up, the more effective you will be when you are an adult and working in the workplace. And the harder you work and the more money you make means it's better for the economy of the country, because you can pay more taxes basically, and there's more money for the country. A third function of education is secondary socialization. Schools play a really big part in teaching us society's norms and values. So it's at school that we learn what is acceptable and not acceptable in our society. School carries on with the primary socialization that we started in the family. So the norms and the values that we learn in school are reflected in every organization that we will join later, for example, workplaces and other social groups. The fourth function is social mobility. In schools, we get the opportunity to achieve qualifications, and the more qualifications we achieve gives us the chance to get the jobs that we want. If we get good qualifications and get good jobs, then this defines our place in society, and it helps us to climb the social ladder and better our position in society. So if you, for example, think of a very poor family and a child that is born into that family, if they work really hard at school and get good GCSEs, A-levels, and finally go on to university, then eventually they will be able to earn enough money to climb the ladder out of the poverty they were born into. This is called social mobility. The fifth and final function of education is social cohesion. Because we are learning the norms and the values of our society while we're at school, we are learning how to get on with our wider society and culture. Functionalists argue that schools bring us together and helps us to get on, and gives us a sense of identity and belonging. So, for example, learning what it means to be British. Now, like I said before, just to summarize, these are the views of the functionalists. And functionalists always view society in terms of what is going to be most useful to maintaining the needs of society as a whole. So in other words, how is education going to help our society to continue functioning at its best? So in summary then, the 5 main functions according to functionalists are social control, social cohesion, secondary socialization, serving the needs of the economy, and social mobility. This will be a really good point in the video to pause and just make sure that you have all the information down and that you know about these 5 main functions, because the next step is going to start evaluating these functions and trying to ask some really important questions about whether or not the functionalists are right in the way they view education. So pause now. Okay, so the big question is education always beneficial for everybody? Education is seen by the functionalists as a way of transmitting society's values to every generation of young people in schools. But there are some really important questions that need to be asked about this approach. Question 1. If schools are meant to be transmitting one set of norms and values, which set of norms and values are they transmitting? Our society consists of lots of different groups of people with different interests and therefore different norms and values. So which group has its set of values that is being transmitted through education? You will often find that it is the norms and values of the majority group that are being transmitted. So what about the norms and values of the ethnic minority groups in the school? Are they being given the same kind of treatment? Are they being given the same voice? These are all very important questions that you need to ask when looking at norms and values. The second question is, does the education system really give everyone an equal chance? Do all children get exactly the same opportunities to succeed at school? Functionalists believe that everybody can achieve on merit, and this basically means that through meritocracy, all children, whether they are rich or poor, have the same opportunities to climb the social ladder and have upward social mobility. But do working class children really have the same opportunities to succeed as middle class children? Do they have the same home backgrounds? Do they have the same support from their parents? Do they have the same opportunities at school itself? Do middle class children sometimes get to go to private school and have private tutors to help them to succeed? Is the idea of meritocracy really something that we can apply to education? Is education a fair system? The third question is a much more radical idea. Some people think that schools should be abolished completely. Some people also argue that the compulsory nature of school, the fact that you have to go, is what hinders people to learn as much as they could. A sociologist called Illich argues that schools stifle creativity and train children to become mindless consumers rather than how to think for themselves. This idea of abolishing schools is known as deschooling. Okay, so that's it. I hope you have been able to get most of that down and make sure it's all done for the lesson so that we can crack on with the evaluation side of the lesson.